Hello, and welcome back to Breakthrough. I'm glad you're here as we keep moving through breaking the cycle of almost. If you've been following along, you know what this is. If you're new, do yourself a favor and don't start in the middle. Pause this and go back to episode 1. The story is meant to build, and it hits different when you walk it in order. All right. Take a breath. Let's step into today's episode. History loves to flatten people into symbols. Abraham Lincoln becomes marble and bronze, a monument and a banknote. We quote him. We teach his leadership. Statues erase tremors. Monuments hide the years when a person was still breakable. Before Lincoln carried a nation, he carried disappointment, grief, and rejection that didn't resolve neatly. His story contains enough no to train an ordinary man to quit. Pull back the curtain and you don't find inevitability. You find repeated near successes that could have soared into cynicism. He lost elections. He watched hopes collapse. He wrestled with darkness heavy enough that friends worried about him. He stood near the edge of obscurity and listened to it whisper, "You do not belong here." Then he kept walking anyway. That is the part history forgets. The long hallway where you keep moving without applause. Lincoln knew what almost feels like. Almost respected. Almost chosen. Almost positioned. He built and watched things collapse. He reached for opportunity and watched doors close. Persistence doesn't feel poetic when you're living it. It feels like futility with stamina. It feels like waking up to another day carrying the weight of calling without the evidence of calling. It feels like arguing with the voice that says, "Be realistic. Sit down. Stop embarrassing yourself." Most people eventually negotiate with almost. They shrink expectations so disappointment hurts less. They stop reaching so dreams don't bruise again. They call it maturity, realism, wisdom. Sometimes it is wisdom. Often it is surrender disguised as sophistication. It is the quiet decision to live smaller because living bigger costs too much. Every so often, someone refuses to make peace with unfinished redemption. Lincoln wasn't heroic because success came. He was heroic because almost didn't convince him to stop. He stretched his life towards something unseen when everything visible told him to accept smaller truth. That is endurance married to conviction, and through the eyes of faith it also looks like evidence of the breaker's quiet work long before public breakthrough arrives. Those seasons no one claps for carry their own sacredness. No angelic interventions, no parting seas, no sky-splitting miracles, just survival, just forward breath, just the decision again and again not to relinquish the thread inside you that refuses to die. That's why Lincoln belongs here. His story reminds us that almost seasons do not automatically equal absence of purpose. Sometimes they are the crucibles where purpose becomes weightier than convenience. Character isn't forged in answered prayers alone. It's forged in unanswered ones too. In delays that question your worth. In no's that don't make sense. In long seasons where nothing seems to justify perseverance except the conviction that quitting would cost more than it appears. That conviction is not always loud. Sometimes it's a quiet refusal to let despair become your permanent narrator. That brings us back to God as the breaker. Without Him, endurance can become survival without promise, and not giving up can feel like meaningless stubbornness. Through Micah's God, endurance changes meaning. It becomes participation in something larger. It becomes alignment with a God who refuses to let the story end under oppression, shame, trauma, or failure. The breaker doesn't abandon the narrative. He moves within it, shaping people and places the world calls waste. Lincoln endured because purpose rooted too deeply to be shaken loose. I endured because something in me refused to let almost write my identity. Even before I could explain it, some internal resistance kept pushing back against the script that said, "This is all you are. This is all you get. This is where you stay." That resistance wasn't always noble. It wasn't always pretty. Sometimes it was just breath in a body that decided to keep showing up. A shift happens when you entertain the idea that survival might be evidence of God's involvement, not proof of his absence. The ground doesn't shake loudly at first. It trembles quietly, the way a building does before you realize there's pressure on the foundation. You start noticing moments when despair should have won and didn't. You start remembering nights hope should have suffocated and somehow kept breathing. Thanks for spending these minutes with me. Breaking a cycle rarely happens in one dramatic moment. It happens in small, steady breakthroughs, one step at a time. If something in today's reading stayed with you, leave a comment and tell me what landed. And if you want to keep walking with me, subscribe so you don't lose the thread. I'll see you in the next episode.